If the Players Association believes that Adam Silver is going to cave, they are wrong. Let's get into this story, man. It says, while the WNBA owners and players continue to negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement, stars are peeling off for competing leagues. The longer both leagues continue to happen, according to Meadowlark Media commentator David Sampson, the greater chance that the WNBA goes away completely. Like league dismantled.
Now, I want to be clear. That's not just some clickbait hyperbole or a wild exaggeration for the sake of headlines. That is a direct, calculated prediction from David Sampson, the former Major League Baseball executive and veteran media analyst who knows exactly how these high-stakes business deals work. He is literally predicting the total dissolution and complete disappearance of the WNBA as we know it if these current collective bargaining agreement negotiations go sideways. And here's the scary part. He's definitely not the only one in the room thinking that we could be witnessing the final days of the league.
WNBA, Sampson said, but that won't be the end of the world for them because they have options. Now, we've seen these players talking about these options that they have. We've seen them signing. WNBPA president Nneka Ogwumike signs with Project B in the middle of CBA negotiations. Board members are co-founders of Unrivaled and have equity stake in Unrivaled. I mean, it's a lot going on. They have been very open and public about flexing their muscle.
Think about the sheer irony of the situation we're seeing right now. On one hand, you've got Caitlin Clark going absolutely viral every time she breathes, showing up at major college basketball games to massive ovations, and even being featured in Taylor Swift documentaries as a symbol of the sport's peak. But on the other hand, the very league she plays in is staring down the barrel of a massive existential crisis that has the potential to end everything overnight. We're talking about a complete shutdown of the premier platform for women's professional basketball in America. So let's look at the core problem, because this is where things get really tense. On Thursday, the WNBA players came together and voted almost unanimously to authorize a strike, which is basically the nuclear option in labor relations. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. It officially hands the union's executive committee the direct power to call for a total work stoppage at any moment they choose. They are essentially holding the stop button for the entire league, and they've shown they aren't afraid to press it.
CBA, that way you can get back to the table in 3 years instead of a 5-year CBA. This is all a part of the give and take and the compromise. He says they oversold how much they can get done in one single CBA. Rather, by wearing strongly worded t-shirts during the All-Star break, calling out the commissioner, or demanding a higher portion of league revenue, WNBA players have been bold and public with their complaints. And the players have also made no secret of their ability to compete and be compensated elsewhere. The second season of Unrivaled.
We are currently on a collision course with a very specific date, January 9th. That is when the current CBA officially expires, and that is the absolute deadline for both sides to figure this out. But you have to understand that this isn't your typical run-of-the-mill labor negotiation like we see in the NBA or the NFL. There are layers to this conflict, financial, cultural, and competitive, that make this situation far more dangerous and unpredictable than anything we've seen in sports labor history for a long time. One of the biggest factors changing the math this year is that the players actually have real, viable alternatives for the first time ever. Look at the league Unrivaled, which just launched its second season with a major broadcast deal on TNT. They are already paying players more on average than what the WNBA was even offering before the most recent proposal. Then you have Project B, which is being fueled by massive amounts of Saudi money and is aggressively signing top-tier stars to 7-figure contracts that the WNBA simply hasn't matched yet.
For the 3-on-3 league out of Miami that airs games on TNT and pays more on average than the WNBA begins January 5th. Now that salary was higher than the WNBA's prior to the WNBA's most recent offers. It's set to begin January 5th. And a Saudi-backed traveling international league called Project B has recently begun signing stars, including union president Nneka Ogwumike, to 7-figure contracts. This was a quote: "If you had any ability to invest and you want to start a league to compete with the WNBA, this is the time. Every player is a free agent.
And if you want to understand how deep the division goes, look no further than Nengeke Ogumike, who happens to be the president of the WNBA Players Association itself. In the absolute heat of these high-stakes negotiations, she went ahead and signed a deal with Project B. Think about the gravity of that timing for a second. The literal head of the union, the person who is supposed to be sitting across the table negotiating for the future of WNBA contracts, just took a massive deal with a direct competing league. That move right there. That isn't just a clever bit of leverage to use at the bargaining table. It's a loud, clear signal to everyone involved that the people leading the charge for the players might already have one foot out the door. It tells the owners and the fans that even the union leadership is looking at the WNBA as a secondary option compared to the new money being thrown around by startup competitors.
All of them want money and need money. Sampson said, if you have a well-capitalized and well-funded business, that could be the end of the WNBA. If a majority of players were to collectively flee to a competitor, the WNBA as we know it could cease to exist. While Sampson stated that he does not believe players are making a mistake by pushing hard for sweeping changes in these talks, he does not believe that owners will budge, which means that if players value the geography and structure of playing in the NBA-owned American League, they may have to accept less than what they are calling for. If the Players Association believes Adam Silver is going to cave, they are wrong, he added. But I will be very careful being cocky if I'm WNBA Players Association. Owners don't care. If the WNBA folds, they will be just fine.
This leads right back to David Sampson's primary argument, and it's a point that cuts through all the PR noise. He's looking at this from a pure investment perspective, saying that if you're a billionaire who's been waiting for the right moment to start a rival women's basketball league, this is your absolute golden opportunity. Because of the way these negotiations are structured, every single player in the WNBA is effectively becoming a free agent in real time. They are all untethered, and they are all watching the clock. The reality on the ground is that these athletes all need to get paid, and they naturally want to be paid what they feel they're worth in a booming market. They are now publicly advertising their willingness to pack up and go elsewhere if the WNBA doesn't meet their demands. It's a bold strategy, but it exposes the league to a level of poaching and talent drain that it has never had to deal with in its entire history.
The Caitlin Clark takeover continues, even in the middle of the CBA negotiations, which has been an absolute circus and a clown show. Caitlin Clark is still going viral all over the country. We saw her at the Annika. We've seen her in commercials. We've seen her taking over everywhere, and it continues. We got to break all of this down. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video.
The WNBA has truly never been more vulnerable than it is at this exact moment, but there's a flip side to this leverage that the players might be seriously miscalculating. David Sampson is pointing out a cold, hard truth. The owners might not actually care if the WNBA folds. You have to remember that many of these owners are NBA franchise billionaires who basically run their WNBA teams as side projects or community outreach initiatives rather than core profit centers. This creates a massive power imbalance, or what we call asymmetric leverage. If the league dissolves tomorrow, those owners are still going to be billionaires running incredibly profitable NBA franchises without skipping a beat. It wouldn't materially impact their net worth or their lifestyle at all. The players, however, would lose everything: their primary platform, their steady salaries, and the massive infrastructure that makes them household names.
And that is I don't see the owners caving like that. I really don't. For now, the WNBPA and team owners continue to negotiate in good faith. They appear quite far apart on many topics, but are trading counter proposals while largely remaining respectful in public commentary. No, they are not remaining respectful. The WNBA came out and called the WNBPA liars publicly. They said that these ladies are lying about the state of our negotiations. They're acting like we're not putting in fair offers. We are putting in good quality, fair offers in good faith. This is what the WNBA came out and said about the WNBPA, who made it seem like The negotiations were in a horrible state. They weren't getting closer. They were just so far apart. And the WNBA came in and called them liars publicly.
Think about the secondary losses, the Nike endorsement deals, the national TV exposure, and the entire marketing machine that is tied specifically to playing on the biggest, most established stage in the country. If the WNBA goes away, that visibility vanishes. You can't just replace 25 years of brand building and league history overnight with a startup, no matter how much Saudi money you throw at it. Now, it's really interesting to look at who is not jumping ship to these alternative leagues right now. We're talking about Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson, the two biggest, most influential stars in the world of women's basketball today. Both of them are staying exclusively tied to the WNBA for the time being. They aren't chasing the quick Project B check or joining the unrivaled roster just yet, and that's a very calculated decision.
And ultimately, we need things sorted out. We got to get things sorted out in the league that she's actually plays in, because she's not playing in Unrivaled. She's not playing in Project B. She says she wants to play in the WNBA, so we need to get that sorted out. Let's get it sorted out. Here it says, David Sampson predicts WNBA could fold if players get too greedy.
Both Clark and Wilson have massive career-defining endorsement deals with Nike that are almost certainly contingent on them playing in the league with the highest visibility and the most consistent media coverage. Caitlin Clark isn't playing in Unrivaled, and she isn't even entertaining offers from Project B right now. A'ja Wilson is in the exact same spot. That tells you everything you need to know about where the true superstars believe the real value is. They are betting their entire legacies on the WNBA surviving this. But here is the uncomfortable question that no one wants to say out loud. What happens if the players surrounding those superstars push too hard? What if the rank-and-file members of the union force a strike or demand so much that the owners decide it's simply not worth the headache anymore and just walk away from the table entirely? If the owners shut the doors, the stars have nowhere to play regardless of their loyalty. Meanwhile, the Caitlin Clark effect is continuing to explode, completely independent of the chaos happening behind the scenes at the league offices. Just look at her recent appearance at the Indy Classic at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. She was there taking photos with endless lines of fans at a Purdue Northwestern Butler event, acting as the face of the sport. She's popping up in Taylor Swift's new documentary, starring in massive State Farm commercials and leading Gatorade campaigns. The contrast here is almost surreal. You have the league's biggest asset thriving and reaching levels of cultural fame we've never seen before, while the league itself is teetering on the edge of oblivion. It's a bizarre situation where the player is becoming bigger than the platform, which only complicates the negotiations because it makes the union feel like they have more power than the actual league finances might support. And this is where the public relations battle is getting really ugly and personal. The WNBA recently took the extraordinary step of publicly calling the players' version of the negotiations a flat-out lie. They didn't use soft corporate language like misunderstanding or difference of opinion. They used the word lie regarding the status of the talks. The league is insisting that they have been putting forward good faith offers and fair proposals that reflect the league's growth. On the other side, the players are painting a picture of a league that is stalled, refusing to budge, and completely out of touch with the new reality of the sport. When you have the front office publicly calling the union members liars during the most sensitive part of a negotiation, any hope of remaining respectful has gone out the window. This isn't a professional disagreement anymore. This is open, high-stakes warfare between the talent and the management. This tension is exactly why Caitlin Clark's recent comments about finding a compromise matter so much more than people realized at first. She suggested that both sides should just get a deal done, even if it's a shorter, 3-year CBA instead of a 5-year deal, just to get back to the table sooner once the league has grown even more. That's actually a very smart, strategic way of thinking that prioritizes the league's survival over a perfect deal right now. However, the reality is that the players' union may have significantly oversold what they could actually accomplish in this single negotiation cycle. We saw them wearing those strongly worded t-shirts during All-Star Weekend and calling out Commissioner Kathy Engelbert in the press. demanding a much higher percentage of the league's revenue immediately. While they have every right to fight for more, David Sampson's warning is that they might be overplaying a hand that isn't as strong as they think. If the Players Association thinks that Adam Silver, who oversees the WNBA in his role as NBA commissioner, is going to just cave because of public pressure, they are likely mistaken. Silver is a veteran negotiator who looks at the bottom line. He doesn't have to cave because, at the end of the day, the NBA doesn't actually need the WNBA to survive for the NBA itself to remain the most successful basketball league on earth. We have to be honest about the history here. The NBA has been subsidizing the WNBA for decades to keep it afloat. If the players push for a work stoppage or make financial demands that simply don't align with the league's current cash flow and long-term debt, Silver and the owners have the power to just let the whole thing fold. They've done the math, and they know where the break-even point is. This brings us to the most fundamental rule of negotiation leverage. It only works if the person you're negotiating with actually needs the thing you're threatening to take away. Do the NBA owners truly need the WNBA to function? The answer, unfortunately for the players, is no. But do the WNBA players need the WNBA? The answer is an absolute resounding yes. That is the core imbalance that no amount of startup money can fix. You have to look at the difference between an established league and an experiment. Leagues like Unrivaled or Project B are exciting, and they have some big names, but they are experiments. The WNBA is an institution with massive network television deals, deep-rooted Nike partnerships, and full integration into the NBA's global infrastructure. You cannot replicate that kind of stability and reach overnight, even with a mountain of Saudi cash and a TNT broadcast slot. The players who are betting everything on these alternative leagues as a plan B might be making a catastrophic error in judgment. They are assuming that those leagues will still be there and still be profitable if the WNBA, the primary source of their fame and the feeder for their talent, actually goes away. It's a huge gamble with their livelihoods and the future of the entire sport. If the WNBA folds, the entire ecosystem of women's basketball in America takes a massive hit. You lose the primary talent pipeline for college players, you lose the professional credibility that comes with an established league, and you lose the commercial viability that sponsors rely on. David Sampson isn't just being a doomer when he talks about this, he's giving a realistic assessment of the worst-case scenario that is becoming more likely by the day. The players are acting like they are NBA superstars who have the power to bring a multi-billion-dollar industry to its knees. But there's a huge difference. NBA owners depend on their teams for a massive portion of their wealth and business identity. WNBA owners, for the most part, are billionaires who run these teams as a side project or even a tax write-off. They aren't going to be hurt if the league closes its doors. I'm not saying this to be mean or to make a moral judgment about what players deserve, because they definitely deserve to be paid well for their incredible talent. I'm saying this as a cold, clinical assessment of power structures. In a fight between a worker who needs a paycheck and a billionaire who doesn't need the business to exist, the billionaire usually wins every single time. Right now, it looks like the players are acting like they have a royal flush when they're actually holding a pair of deuces. They have the passion and they have the public's attention, but they don't have the financial leverage to force the owner's hands. The strike authorization vote was a powerful show of solidarity, but solidarity doesn't pay the bills if the league decides to shut down operations entirely. That unanimous vote shows that the players are united and ready to walk away from the bargaining table if they don't get what they want, but the scary part of that equation is that the owners are also perfectly capable of walking away. And if both sides walk away at the same time, the league doesn't just take a break, it could very easily dissolve into nothingness, leaving everyone unemployed. This is exactly why someone like Caitlin Clark is in such a different position than the rest of the league. She is going to be just fine, regardless of what happens with the WNBA. Her endorsement portfolio is so massive, and her cultural impact is so deep that she transcends the league itself. She has a brand that exists outside of a basketball court, which gives her a level of personal security the other players don't have. But for the hundreds of other players, the veterans, the bench players, and the rookies who aren't household names, they are taking a massive gamble. They are betting their entire professional careers on the hope that the owners will be the ones to blink first. However, if you look at the history of labor disputes, that is almost always a losing bet. History shows us that owners have more resources, more time, and way more patience than the workers do. They can afford to wait out a strike for years if they have to, while players often have to start looking for new jobs within months. This is a universal truth in almost every industry, and women's professional basketball isn't going to be the one exception to that rule, just because the movement behind it is righteous. The next 2 weeks are going to be some of the most critical moments in the history of women's sports. They will literally determine whether or not the WNBA survives through 2025. That is not an overstatement. That is the reality of the stakes we are dealing with right now. If this pushes to a full-blown strike, the players need to be prepared for the very real possibility that the owners just decide to flip the switch and end it all. As David Sampson pointed out, if you're a competitor looking to take over the market, this is your moment. Every player in the league is effectively on the market. Everyone is looking for a better deal, and the established league is currently busy negotiating itself right out of existence. It's the perfect storm for a rival to swoop in and pick up the pieces of what used to be the WNBA. So, the big question we have to ask is, was this leverage play actually worth the risk? Are the union's demands actually realistic when you look at the league's bank accounts, or have they pushed too far, too fast? Are the players really prepared for the possibility that this gamble ends with no league at all? Because that is an outcome that is now very much on the table. This isn't just a temporary hurdle that can be fixed later. If the league folds, it's likely a permanent shutdown. You can't just flip a switch and restart a league once everyone realizes the alternatives weren't actually better than what they had. The loss of infrastructure and trust would be final. I want to hear from you. What do you think is going to happen when that January 9th deadline hits? Is one side going to blink and find a way to compromise, or are we actually watching the slow-motion collapse of the WNBA in real time? Drop your predictions in the comments below, hit that subscribe button for more updates as this story develops, and share this with anyone who thinks this is just another standard labor talk. It's not. It's an existential crisis, and we're about to find out if the players made the right call or if they just talked themselves out of a job.